Alright, today we are going to talk about bowling and how it is a skill that you didn't know you needed to improve. So we're going to go and start with a few things. We're going to talk about our oil patterns, how that's going to make a big difference. We're going to talk about bowler's etiquette. I'll explain what that means and why you want to know it. And then we're going to talk about those stinky bowling shoes everybody loves, but why they're so needed. After that, I'm going to actually show you how to bowl. We're going to talk about the potential dangers, and then we're going to talk about hooking the actual bowling ball and how to do that. So let's go and start with oil patterns. We're going to start with your standard league pattern. And what this means is this is when there's actually leagues going on. So these are ones that you may not see when you go in with your friends, but this is going to be a specific group of people that bowl quite regularly. So their oil patterns are going to be a little bit different. If you look over here, you're going to notice that these dark colors are going to be the type of oil. The darker blue is going to be the thicker oil, where it's going to be a little bit more concentrated, and it's going to thin out with the lighter blue. Now the bowling lane is 60 feet long, so with these numbers on the side, that's going to be how far the oil actually goes. Notice that the thicker oil is going to be in the middle and it's just a little bit out. And then as it starts to thin out deeper down the lane, it ends out for about 36 feet. This is going to be how people get the bowling ball to hook. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and we'll actually show you how to use these oil patterns to hook the bowling ball. Now, for most of you guys, you're going to be out with your friends. You're not going to have these standard lead patterns. You're going to have what's called open play. Open play is just the standard oil that's used to condition the lane so that they don't get damaged, but what most people are going to have when they go out and bowl with their friends. So you notice it's a lot lighter. It's not going to be nearly as thick of oil, and it's going to stop at 35 feet. 1 foot doesn't seem like a whole lot of difference, but when it comes to the ball hooking, it can actually make the world of difference. So you may have noticed sometimes when you're out, you can get the ball to hook a little bit easier on sometimes, and then other times you don't get it to hook as much. What you don't realize is you're probably playing on different oil patterns, which is what's making that ball hook a little bit easier for you. So let's go ahead and talk now about bowler's etiquette and why that's so important. So bowler's etiquette is simply just taking turns and making sure that the person to your left and right are not actually bowling while you're bowling. So if you look at these pictures, we're all guilty of it. We want to see our friends bowl. We want to cheer them on and make sure they get a good score. But it's actually not bowler's etiquette when you're crowding the lane like this. You're doing a couple things. You're making it harder for those that are trying to practice because they're going to be distracted by what's going on to their left and right. So you want to be courteous to them, as well as it's actually dangerous and not courteous to those just trying to have fun as well, because you're crowding into their lane and you're causing distractions among other people. This could cause a whole slew of issues, so we just want to make sure that when you are up and bowling, just remember that if someone's up onto your left or right and they're actually bowling, to let them finish their turn before you start to bowl. Pretty simple, just take your turns. So let's go ahead and talk about bowling shoes. Most people are going to hate them. I'm sure you don't like them because you want to know how many people have put those shoes on. But why are they actually important? So on bowling shoes, you have the sole of the shoe. So we're going to look at these bowling shoes right here. And this is what's called the slide on a shoe. This is what's going to make you actually slide onto the lane and not stick. When you don't have this, or a slide is damaged, what you run into the issue is you could very well stick to the surface of the bowling lane, which is going to cause you to fall. That doesn't seem like that's super dangerous until you actually do it and can cause severe injury. So, a couple things with bowling shoes to remember is, yes, you do need them, otherwise you can hurt yourself and others can get hurt as well. The other thing to remember is you want to avoid getting wet substances or on the surface of the bowling shoe. Meaning if it's raining outside or there's wet surfaces on the ground, you want to avoid stepping in those with your bowling shoes. You're going to track that onto the lanes themselves, and you can, again, stick instead of sliding, which is going to cause you to get hurt. The other thing to remember with bowling shoes is that they're for your protection. They can also damage the lanes if you wear street shoes. As you attempt to slide, if you are wearing street shoes, you're going to mark up the lanes and can very well damage it and cause quite a bit of damage to the lane. So those are why you actually do need to wear those bowling shoes. So now let's get into the fun things, all right? We want to talk about the dangerous conditions first on the bowling lanes. You guys have all seen the black line. We call this the foul line. Now sometimes it gets tempting to cross it and to run out on the lane and slide around. Although that may seem like it's a lot of fun to do, what you're actually doing is causing a lot of dangerous conditions. Because the oil is out there, as soon as you get past this black line, you're going to smear the oil across the lane as well as on your shoes. It's very slippery and you can easily fall and get hurt. As soon as you come back across the lane, you're now dragging that oil onto the approach of the lane. Not only is that going to cause issues for you and your friends while you're bowling, it's also going to cause issues for other people who are bowling after you because they're going to step in that oil, they're going to stick on the ground, and they're going to get hurt as well. So not only are you going to cause potential issues for your friends, you can actually hurt others by doing this. So as innocent as it seems, it is very important to stay onto the other side of this line and not ever cross that black foul line, even intentionally. So let's go ahead and talk about hooking the ball now. I know this is how you get what most people want to know is how do I hook the ball? How do I make the ball stay onto the lane? So there are a couple things that you actually need to know. It's going to start with the formation of the ball. So if we look here, in this picture that's marked no, the reason is the wrist is actually what we call breaking the wrist. When that happens, your wrist flex back, you flex your wrist backwards, and as the ball rolls, it does not create the motion the ball needs to actually hook into the lane. So that is why when that happens, the ball just goes straight and kind of rolls off into the gutter. As versus here, where the wrist is going to be cocked more into a symmetrical motion, that's going to give the ball a more rolling motion, which is going to allow it to hook. Now, of course, that's only one part, so we want to make sure that we're following everything correctly. So the other is going to be is formation. You want to keep your body very square and very symmetrical as you throw the ball. And then as you come through, you follow through all the way with your arm. By allowing that follow through, that's going to let the ball finish and get down the lane the way it's supposed to. So now that we know how to throw the ball, we need to talk about what bowling ball to use. So most of the time when you go with your friends, you're just going to have the standard, what we call house balls. And those aren't going to do a whole lot of good. You can hook them a little bit, but they're not actually meant to hook. So you're not going to, as hard as you try, you're not going to get it to hook a whole lot. If you're wanting to get a little bit more serious, become a little bit more professional, that's where you get your own bowling ball. Now we want to know what type of bowling ball to use, right? So what we do is there's two different types of weights in a bowling ball. Symmetrical or asymmetrical. This is going to determine how the ball reacts to the oil on the lane. This first picture here is what's called a symmetrical ball, or a symmetrical weight. So symmetrical weight, what that's going to do for you is when the lanes are a little bit heavier, a little bit more oil where the ball's not going to hook as much, you want a symmetrical ball. That's going to create the ball to hook earlier on the lane so it doesn't hook so far down the lane, which is going to cause it to get to the center of the lane a little bit quicker. Now when you have a oil pattern that's a little lighter, maybe not so much oil in the middle, so the ball's going to hook a little bit easier, use an asymmetrical ball. The asymmetrical is going to stay down the lane a little bit further before it begins to hook, so that it doesn't hook up as early and it's still going to get to the center of the lane. So we're going to look at this bowling ball right here. This is what we call, this ball is an asymmetrical one. So when I'm using this ball, this is what I use when there's a little bit heavier oil. The ball will hook a little bit quicker for me and get to the center of the lane a little bit faster. Now if I was throwing on a pattern, like I said, that had shorter oil or longer oil, then we would want to use a ball that was a little bit more or that had a symmetrical weight in it. That symmetrical is going to make the ball go a little bit further down the lane before it hooks. So now that we've talked about which bowling ball you want to use, we've talked about the formation and what's important, and of course how to throw and be safe. Let's go ahead and show you putting all those together, how you can throw the perfect strike. Now that you've seen how to throw the perfect strike with formation and the way you throw it, now it is your turn to go out, show your friends up, and impress them a little bit, and go throw the perfect game for yourself.